Ladies and gentlemen, what you are about to hear is the last conversation I had with my mentor and a man who changed my life, Mr. Louie Simmons. Over this phone call, I asked him questions about the origins of Westside, how his methodology was created, some of the differences between his methodology and others. We also talk about some of my stories from being at Westside, as well as some of the philosophical underpinnings that make Westside what it what it is and what it was. I hope this conversation is as helpful and insightful for you as it was for me, and I hope you enjoy listening.
And Louie, how are you today?
I'm doing great. How are you?
I'm really, really good. I'm happy to be talking. So for anyone who's been living under a rock in the world of strength and conditioning for out of the past 20, 30 years, Louie Simmons is the owner and originator, or the originator of the Ohio version of Westside Barbell, and arguably, and in my opinion, is the world's top strength and conditioning coach. Westside's been called the strongest gym on the planet, and I could give some stats, but I feel like I might as well let you respond to that. Why do people call Westside the strongest gym on the planet?
Well, because we probably broke over 150 all-time world records powerlifting. I trained 2 Olympic gold medal sprinters, and worked with Kevin Rauneman when he was UFC heavyweight champ. So pretty diverse. He used to do some NFL stuff, but I don't enjoy that very much. I like absolutes. Absolutely the strongest or absolutely the fastest. And everything else need not apply. Yeah.
I think that's a fantastic slogan. Okay. And the reason I found out who you were, when I first came to Westside for a week, almost a decade ago now, I had been training in a linear periodization fashion. And I was up to a 600 something deadlift. I was 21, 280, 285 pounds. I was a pretty big, strong guy at 21. And I hurt my back deadlifting. And in the couple of days I spent laid up in bed, I read your book and a couple of the books you referenced, and then called you to ask, really, what is this conjugate thing? So in your words, what is the conjugate methodology? Why is that different than how people train today and have trained before you introduced it to North American powerlifting?
Well, first, I'll talk about linear periodization as taught in colleges, which is completely outdated by about 50 years. You start out with high reps for muscle hypertrophy, then you move into less reps for some power, then less reps when you're getting strong for max effort, when you're getting close to a contest. Drop the reps, add weight. Problem is, after dropping work to build muscle, within 2 weeks, you start to lose the muscle. If you don't work on power for 2 weeks, you lose some of your power. And then when it comes to a contest, when you're having these immense heavy singles, you have no base. So the chances of making a record is very slim. That's why we use 3-weight pendulum waves. Actually, a lot of teams would use this overseas, rugby teams and football teams, stuff like this. But all of our weights on the speed day, for Olympic lifting, it is 75, 80, and 85% in a 3-week wave. We powerlifters actually use 80, 85, and 90 because weightlifting is a speed strength sport, and we're in a strength sport. They have to be fast with, super fast with heavy objects. We don't. Our objects are, we don't have 2-part lifts. So that's why we add 5% to it, slow the bar down. As you slow the velocity slows, force increases. We all know that.
Yep. So that makes...
all the weights that we use, all the weights we use on those days are specifically for speed strength, or if you use 30 to 40% for explosive strength, and then 3 days later for the upper and lower, we have a max every day, where we actually do 2 maxes on that day. Keep the bar volume up. It's about 20% barbell volume, 80% single joint exercises like reverse hypers, inverse curl, glute ham raise, shrugs, exercise like that.
Absolutely. Okay, so that's really interesting. And that's really the crux of what I wanted to talk about, because training at Westside, coming to meet you, spending the week there was a perspective-altering experience for me, both in weightlifting and, to be honest, fundamentally in life. And the way I define conjugate and linear periodization to people, when I'm trying to put it very simply, is linear periodization is working at one goal at a time. Whether, like you said, that's building more muscle, getting stronger, getting faster. And conjugate is taking all of the things that you need and doing all of them within the same plan. Would you agree that that's a simple way to explain it?
Absolutely. We have weekly plans that turn into monthly plans with then yearly and multi-year. You're exactly right.
And that, I think, the way you put that, and I know that's in the Book of Methods, and for anyone who hasn't read it, Louie's book, The Westside Book of Methods, is a phenomenal read that I think is mandatory reading for anybody in the world of strength and conditioning. But that's really what got me so interested when I was first introduced to your ideas. It's not, this is what I'm working on this week, and then next month it's something different, and a year later it's something different. You're building towards the lifter you want to be throughout the entirety of your training. And I think that's what's made Westside so successful in large part, that lifters are constantly getting better at everything.
Yes, correct. You're right.
Okay, so when it comes to how you put together a conjugate program, I've got a few questions that I want to bounce off you in terms of what the necessary components are. So if I'm looking at conjugate as analogous to life, let's say I want to improve in my business and I want to improve in my physique and I want to have better relationships. So I want to get stronger, I want to get more muscular, and I want to move faster. How do you know which to focus on, and how did you come to 80% single joint, 20% compound? How do you know the right mix of what you need to move forward?
As far as the 80-20 ratio, I had a stat per sure. I always wanted one. I had one. So he followed track people around in my gym, and it would take me normally, when a girl would graduate from college, it took me about 2 months to turn them pro. I'd knock a tenth or tenth half off, in 100 meters or 200 meters, and they'd run off to sign a contract. But basically, the conjugate, you have to concentrate on changing velocities. You change volume. You change intensity or your percent of 1 rep max. You change exercises. You have to constantly change or you run into the law of accommodation. Like when a man spells his name correctly, he can only do it incorrectly. He can't make it better. He can only make it incorrect. If you do something enough, you'll go backwards. Block masons don't get any stronger once they get accustomed to the work they're doing. They don't make any strength gains, because it's too repetitious and their body almost is putting a governor on it.
Got it. So would you say so are there different lifters that you're working with today or in the past where you change the emphasis within the different areas they're working on, despite the fact that you maintain all of those areas moving forward at the same time? Are there times you're doing a different percentage of hypertrophy work relative to the program, or speed work or strength work?
Well, everything's monitored for strength. We do 25 lifts for speed strength, okay?
Mm-hmm.
And if you look at it, we in one day, twice a week, we do 6 weights above 90% in the upper body and lower. So that would be, 12 a week for maximal effort. Only max effort means an all-time record or a miss.
Right.
But
right.
my gym does over 92%. The entire gym will break a max effort record every time, over 92%, because we change every week. If you had a weight, if you was to do a rack pull for 3 weeks in a row above 90%, you'll go backwards. That's
right.
Scientifically proven. All right, so each week we switch. Not only do we might go from a squat to a good morning to a pull, some kind of a park clean. We jump it all around. A lot of people think you have to get accustomed to it. We don't. Once you ride a bike, you can ride a bike.
Right.
For example, I've got a real strong 148 girl who I was told, she's 132 world record holder, but 617 squat, for instance. But I was told that if she went to 48, she could never break a record. Well, 2 weeks ago, she squatted 680, all-time world record, total 1575 and 85.3. It was an insult to her, and it was certainly an insult to me. And I live on vendettas, I live on something. So, but why? Because I changed her training. That's the key. And like I said, the single joint, like you said, you hurt your back. So if you was in my gym, obviously we would have you start back and do a lot more lower back exercises, because proportionally your lower back must be doing more work than your upper back.
Right.
So we try to do this. The single joint exercise makes sure you never have a muscular imbalance. I mean, you see so many football players pull hamstrings. It's ridiculous. And it's the coach's fault. For all you coaches out there, you're the coach, you're the boss, they pull a hamstring, it's your fault.
100%. Okay, so that's really interesting. So it's the max effort work is the important stuff. Those are the really meaningful things.
Yes.
And the single joint work.
Yes.
And the single joint work is unique to the needs of the athlete.
Exactly. It's custom made.
I like that a lot. That makes a lot of sense to me. And now, you said, just to touch back on this for a second, you said that you had a statistician follow you around the gym to determine exactly what the best protocols were in terms of what athletes were making what improvements and what percentage they were doing the exercise. Did I have that correct?
Yes, you did. What I don't know if I said, but he followed heavyweight powerlifters, okay? And I've got guys over 2,800, a lot of them. Then sprinters, all right, and then small lifters. And they all came out the same. The percentage was almost identical for everyone. A man once said, do you have 640 muscles or do you have one? So, they all have to work together. And if one of them is weak, the weak link will tear. So we can't afford to have downtime. Linear periodization causes so many injuries. It's incredible. How do I know? Because I had it for 12 years.
Right.
No injuries after that. No injuries.
And that's absolutely incredible. I think it's amazing that apart heavyweight lifters, lightweight lifters, sprinters, the same protocol, the same split works for all of them. And then the uniqueness is in what they're doing within the single joint movements.
Exactly. Large men use a lot of leverage. So many times in space exercise, like a good morning, they would have to do more reps as a small lifter just because of leverage.
Right.
So
you can start to determine that individually. Right.
Yes.
Okay, incredible. So I had a couple more questions to bounce off you quickly. I know you're very busy. Thank you. When I was at Westside, there were a few things I noticed. One, obviously, the training program, your direction, how you scientifically built the program out makes a lot of sense, and obviously works. But what I found were there were certain special sauces at Westside that made the lifters what they were. I remember I was doing a tricep exercise. I can't remember the lifter I was working with, and I was 280 at the time, 285. He was 175 pounds, I think, and he was obliterating me on the movements, like crushing the weights I was using. And I asked him, I'm like, man, how are you doing this? And he looked at me and shrugged. He's like, well, I train Westside. And it really got me thinking. I've been thinking about it for years, really, about the intensity you guys have at the gym, about the environment you guys have at the gym. And I'm curious what you think the things are that Westside has that makes successful lifters. Because you can take a nobody and you can make them successful. And the program is one thing, but there are people running your methodologies around the world who aren't achieving your results. And I'm curious why you think that is. What's different?
I believe because, it's easy to say, but here I have breakfast with the guys 4 times a week. I have some of them come over and watch fights. I'm a huge fight fan. We spend a lot of time together. Even though it's a single person, contest, we're all together. When we go, we've got lots of help. We got lots of lifters. And it's like, Mike Ruggiero trained here years ago. He's very, very strong, super heavy. Took me a year to get him here. I said, Mike, why wouldn't you come? And he said he thought we were a cult. And the reason was because we were just had everything set up. It was, if you lived it, we had 2 guys helping you. It was just systematic. It's not a cult. But we care. And when you've had as many world record holders, I've had 3 world record holders in the bench and the squat in the gym at the same time. No jealousies. All we want to do is break records. Iron sharpens iron.
Yeah.
And if you run with the lame, you develop a limp.
I love that quote. So I think that's a really big one. I remember when I was at Westside the very first time, my deadlift PR coming there was 610 or 615. And you had me pull 675. And I remember standing over the bar, looking down at it, and AJ Roberts was in a squat rack behind me, just kind of like, obviously he wasn't impressed with 685, but he's just glancing over watching. I'm thinking, AJ Roberts is standing behind me while I'm deadlifting. The environment made a huge difference. Okay, so
that's why teams have dynasties.
Yeah.
It's hard to beat a dynasty. Back in, back with the UCLA years ago, the Chicago Bulls, the mid-'90s. You build a dynasty. Dynasties are hard to build, hard to tear down.
Yeah. Okay, so there's one aspect. There's the dynasty mindset, the dynasty pressure that brings to it. The one thing I think Westside's known for is the amount of intensity with focus, with a PR, with a contest. And how do you build that? And how important do you think that mental intensity is?
Mental's everything. It's 100%. You gotta dream it before you do it.
Dream it before you do it. And how do you develop that in your lifters? Are there certain things that you do to intensify that in people, to bring it out more?
Some of them are born with it. Some of them aren't. I've had teams come here. One of the coaches from Iowa State, and I read a book in 1973 called Jonathan Livingston's Seagull, and it was where this seagull wanted to fly. Are you familiar with the book?
I've heard of it, yeah.
Okay, well, the seagull wanted to fly fast, and that they does say dead fish, so he got kicked out. And one day he was flying 197 miles an hour, and he thought to himself, because he's all by himself on a beach, and he goes, "What is the limits? What are my limits?" And he looked down the beach, and he saw a silver gull about 100 feet away. And then the silver gull was right beside him. And he goes, "How did you do that?" And the silver gull said, "Perfect speed." I said, "What is perfect speed?" Perfect speed is being there. And that's my life philosophy. Plan A, no plan Bs.
I love that.
And like this guy brought the entire team that book. Not that will change. But I think, different people are stimulated by different things. I don't treat everybody the same. And, you got to get in some guy's face and other guys you pat on the back. You learn. I've been around a lot of people, and I learned how things work. You probably noticed that when you were here, that you just see different people differently. Yes. Absolutely.
Okay, so we've got the dynasty aspect, the intensity, and knowing how to get that intensity, and knowing what brings that out, whether that's being in your face, whether that's getting some space, whether that's the encouragement. And are there any other aspects that you find are integral to the environment and the success of Westside beyond that make the program what it is?
I think Westside itself. I mean, when you walk in and you look at that board, and many, many, many world records are on that board, and the ones they knocked off were world records before them. I mean, I've probably got one of the few gyms. I've had people in the bench break a world record holder, another guy in the same class break their record. Same thing in the squat. Not many gyms could ever say that. But we could trade records back and forth inside my gym.
Absolutely.
So you got that type of, you're obligated. You come here. It's like people say, "I think you can help me, Louie," and I would say, "What can you do for Westside?" That's what counts. What can you do for my gym? So if you get better, it's like putting bricks around a castle. More higher than bricks, harder it is to get in my castle. That's the way it's supposed to be.
And you built a hell of a castle so far. One of the last things. Oh, sorry.
I'd like to say one thing though. In 1982, I broke up, and during 81, I broke my lower back and my upper back for the second time. And the first time I was on crutches for 10 months. This time I couldn't lay down for 17 weeks. I said, there's got to be a better way. That's why I went all Soviet training. And a lot of people don't understand it, but for some reason I picked it up very easy. And that's made the difference. Like all the Bert Prashonsky and A.S. Primblin with his charts. I mean, I'm going like, this is good enough for 1,000 high-skilled lifters. It's got to be good enough for me. So I took their charts, I used them, and I stick by it to this day. Everything's in sports. It's mathematics, biomechanics, and physics. That's what sports is. And hope you got a brain to go with it.
And I think that's actually one of my favorite aspects of Westside. Long before I ended up on the phone with you and ended up at Westside the first time, I actually had an argument with a trainer at a local gym where I was working at that point about the Westside methodology. And I said, well, I've read, this thing that Louie Simmons said, and we should squat like this or try this. And he goes, no, that's all wrong. You should do it like this. And I remember looking at him and thinking, okay, yeah, no problem. You've got this view. Where's your world record? I think the most interesting aspect of everything you're doing is you could point at the results and go, hey, if you've got a better way, come take some of my records. Show me a gym that's doing that. And that leads me to one thing I wanted to ask you about, because this is one of my favorite things at Westside. There was a flag on the wall that said, kill them all and let God sort it out. Why is that up on the wall at the gym?
Because that's exactly what it means.
I've loved that since the first day I walked in.
If you can't keep up, you got to get out. I'm sorry. My gym's private. Costs me about $80,000 a year to have it, and it's not a money thing at all. A guy asked me once, "Who's your favorite lifter?" And I said, "The strongest guy." I said, "Who's your least favorite?" "The weakest guy." The gym has to be the gym. Outside the gym, it's a different story. But in the gym, it has to be that way. That's just all there is to it.
Absolutely. I think that's
when
one of the.
someone leaves, many times a guy will leave the gym for whatever reason, and I go, "Well, have you heard from them?" No, and I don't want to hear from them. They're gone. I got to concentrate inside that gym. All I do is go to the gym and write. I'm on my 13th book right now, and it's all about training, trying to help people get stronger. You know, the simplest and safest way, really, and it is.
Completely, and I think the proof is in the pudding, so to speak. The results are there. The bricks you're building the castle, the dynasty with, are bricks made of world records. And I think that's an aspect that's really missing in our world today, where it's, hey, you can feel like the strongest guy, you can feel hardcore, you can feel like this, but show me the numbers. Show me your result and I'll believe it. And you've got that in spades.
Exactly. I would like to say one thing. A lot of people look at me as like the coach, the trainer. I don't like the word coach at all. But what I am, I'm a better student than I ever am a coach. I learn every day. And a lot of people don't. They take stuff for granted. I learn every day. I swear. That's my job. When I get a bunch of strong guys, how in the hell did I get them strong? I asked Chuck Vogelpohl, many times we do experiments. You probably know that.
Yes.
So I would have him do something. And then I'd ask Chuck, tell me what happened. Like I had him do heavy deadlifts with lots of bands. And I said, Chuck, what did you get out of this enormous amount of band plus weights on the bar? And he said, it teaches me to think while I'm straining. And that's a key element for it to be strong. You just can't be a moron, you know? Yeah.
Absolutely. And I think one of the things you told me when I was there, because I came to Westside to, like, tell me what to do. I'll do, like, you could tell me to go outside, and instead of pulling the sled, just lick the ground. And I would go, well, that's what I'm doing. And I remember at one point we were talking, and you said, listen, nobody's going to be a better coach for you than you'll be. Despite the fact that I came there to learn the information, to take your system, to say, hey, just tell me what to do. And what you told me to do was think. You can give me the information, you can give me the system. I've got to learn it. I've got to apply it. I've got to learn from what I'm doing.
Exactly. You're the best. You can't do it better than you can do it. See, like, and a lot of people have anxiety. Like, let's say you come to my gym, and like next Monday we're going to pull a pin 3, and you go, oh my God, I suck at a pin 3, and they're all going to kick my ass and make fun of me. So all week long you think about that. So we don't do it that way. In the morning at breakfast, we decide what we're going to do. So, and it might be your worst thing, but you don't have time to have anxiety. You're going to be dead in half an hour. So there goes all the anxiety. We have no anxiety. You know, we probably talked a lot while you were here, and anything we can do to take a guy off the list, because you go to meet, you got superior concentration. And that's why we do what we do. I was a big trash talker, but it took my mind off even anything can happen with the weights. I never even thought about them.
Amazing. Okay, well, that's truly everything that I wanted to get from this. Like I said, conjugate methodology has not only influenced me as a coach, working with, well, at this point in time, I've worked now with people who are just starting out all the way up to the world heavyweight champ in boxing at one point. And conjugate methodology has influenced all of that. And to be honest, it's credit to the phone call we had where you invited me to come to the gym. It's changed the trajectory of my career. But conjugate's also given me a different approach to achieving in every area of life, and the idea of taking those goals and how do I make a cohesive plan to become everything I want to be in every area. I think the philosophy of that is mind-blowing.
Well, I think you're smart, because I've seen however you are in a gym, that's how you are at home. You know, if you're sloppy at home. You know, if you're very, methodical in the gym, you're probably methodical in your life. And, you know, all sports are conjugate. You said you work with a heavyweight. Well, listen, conjugate boxing, if you look at it, feints, head feint, foot feint, shoulder feint, different combinations. It's all conjugate. Baseball, fastball, curveball, change up. It's all conjugate when you think about it. Football, they don't run one freaking play the whole game. They run an enormous amount of plays. Everything but is made to connect to each other without breaking the chain. That's the key, and that's conjugate.
I think that truly is a philosophy for better performance in everything. from lifting to sports to life. Incredible.
I believe so. Yeah.
I think the proof is all around us. And thank you very, very much for the conversation. I appreciate the time immensely. Like I said, I couldn't give you more credit for what the first trip to Westside has done for me. Like I said, in my profession and in my life, it was life-changing.
Well, you know, I tell people all the time, because we have visitors from everywhere, just South Korea, Israel not long ago, all over the world come here. Every week somebody's here. And to me, it's a bigger honor for people like you to come to me than it is for me, you to come see me. I mean, I don't want to call it flattering, but I mean, you're coming here for a reason, and I'm willing to help. And that's the key, because, I mean, dude, I broke everything in my body up till 1972 or 82. And I switched, and the only injury I ever had came from prior to that. And I made top 10 for 34 years. Did I get stronger? No. Did I get smarter? Yes. That was the key.
Absolutely. So with the new book you're writing that's coming out with the 13 books, where is the best way for people to get some of your information, to start learning some of this, and to be able to apply conjugate to their training, and if they're smart, in my opinion, in their life? What's the best way for people to start getting some of your information?
Well, on our website, I think it's westside-barbell.com. And actually, I have a book called The Real Story of Westside Barbell that I wrote. And, you know, it was on Netflix, but I didn't have a lot to do with it. And I've never seen it. I've never seen the movie to this day, and I never will. But I wrote a book. From the time I was in first grade and got kicked out, I'll start there. I won't leave it any farther. But I have a book on organization and periodization will be out soon. And I have another book I've already wrote on the conjugate system in its entirety. And it includes a lot of different sports, a lot of track, weightlifting, and Olympic lifting. All right, how it's done, performed for all three. And then, you know, just like I said, everything is conjugate in my life. And so that's how you get hold of my books. But a lot of people don't know. It's all about a plan. Without a plan, you plan to fail. So that's why I wrote a book on organization and periodization. Now, we don't take any downtime. I wanted to say one thing. I got a real strong girl, but, you know, sometimes you just never how to read, you know. She broke her arm here about a year and a half ago. And, I mean, the bone came out and everything. So I wanted to go meet. We did a little tune-up meet. She didn't make weight. Didn't want to. Weighed like 154. But we go to him. I call her. I said, we got to meet. And I said, I'm going to pay you X amount if you break world records. She goes, it's only 3 weeks away. I said, you're breaking your record every freaking week in the gym. So she wrote 3 weeks. We rolled down there. She squatted 680 at 148 world record and 2 total world records. 3 weeks notice. We are strong all the time. All the time. Not like come meet me in 3 months. That doesn't do anyone any good, you know.
Absolutely.
Because people ask about a peak. We really don't have. I don't believe in peaks. I believe in being there all the time, you know. Hell, if I could, if it can, if I could, I mean, GSP would kick my ass on his worst day, but that's the day I jump on him. But, you know, he probably doesn't have a worst day like we don't. He probably stays at a high level all the time. That's why he's one of the greatest ever.
Absolutely. It's about continuing to push that peak, not touching it every once in a while.
That's right. Add to it. Don't subtract from it.
Fantastic. Okay, and just for the people listening, I could not recommend Louie's books more highly. Louie's one of the authors where if they put something out, I'm reading it, and I always gain from it. And you mentioned the Netflix documentary. To be honest, I did watch it, and I didn't find that it was in any way a reflection of my experience being at Westside. I think this conversation and your books are absolutely how people need to get the information.
Yeah. Now, I mean, I've never seen it, and I won't get into why. I did not make 1 cent off of it. I didn't want any part of it. It's a long story. I won't get into it, how I got mixed up in it. But the book is, you know, actually, Craig, if you get a hold of Tom, have him mail you my book called By the Iron Samurai, Story of Westside Barbell, and we'll mail you a copy of it. I think it's a lot of people had it on ebook and they liked it, so I hope you will too.
Absolutely. Thank you, Louie. Thank you very, very much for the time and all of the wisdom that I've gotten from you in person through your writings and everything else you've done over the years. I appreciate it immensely.
Well, it's great talking to you, Craig.
You as well.
Everything keeps going good for you.
I appreciate that very much. Thank you again, Louie.
You're welcome. So long.
Right. Bye-bye.